Hello and welcome to Into Your Life podcast. I'm Lenka and I'm joined here by my wonderful co-host Natalie.
Hi, we invite you to join our weekly conversations about finding more life in one's life.
Well, what does it actually mean?
We have discussions with guests about ways to live happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives, both personally and professionally.
That sounds great. Let's go.
Imagine walking the longest road. Now, when I met Travis, he said he's going to be walking the longest road. And the first thing that came to my mind is, oh my God, that's going to be tiring. Oh my God, my feet are going to ache. But having had a conversation with Travis, I'm like, sounds amazing. It sounds fascinating. It sounds like an adventure of a lifetime. And it's not just a 5-minute adventure either. And this is why I'm so excited that Travis is here today, because he is planning to walk the longest road. I'm going to leave him to explain what that is, what that means. So welcome, Travis. It's really great to have you here with us on Into Your Life podcast. Please introduce yourself and explain, what is the longest road?
Hi, Natalie. Pleasure to be here. Definitely. Thanks for having me on. So the longest walkable road, it was actually first discovered in 2019. This dude on Reddit was doing some Google navigation, something, just playing around, and posted this link or this photo. And so back in August last year, I got introduced to it. And it's a road that goes from Cape Town, South Africa, all the way up to Magadan, Russia. It's about 14,000 miles long, and it crosses 16 countries. And so, yeah, I'm gonna be walking that starting next June. And at first, it seemed like it would just be kind of a fun thing to do, kind of like an adventure, but it didn't seem really plausible, especially reading the different comments and the narrative that some people have written about. But after doing the math and actually considering it and wondering how it could be possible, the pieces just started coming together. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this.
So obviously it's not something that you just think, I'm going to do it. You get in the car and you do it like a spur of the moment. It takes a lot of planning. How long do you think it's going to take you to walk this road?
About 27 months.
That's a long time to be walking, to be away from home, from family, from luxuries, like most probably a roof over your head most of the times, and just the conveniences of a store down the road. But what is it that got you interested in this? What sort of piqued your interest? Because it's one thing to say, oh, cool, longest road, that looks great, yeah, and then forget about it, to actually looking into and planning to walk it.
So there's a couple stories to kind of give light on that, why do this. And one of them is a good movie that I like to watch. It's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And it talks about this dude who is working at Life magazine, and he's just a daydreamer and not very confident in himself. And he's just kind of wandering around in his mind a lot. And there's this, the company is going into, it's closing to move into a digital world, whatever. And they're missing a still frame. And it's supposed to go on the cover of the final Life magazine. And he's trying to find it, nowhere to be found. And he's down in his little office, and his partner's like, what are we going to do? He's like freaking out. And then he just looks at a picture on his corkboard of the photographer for Life magazine out in somewhere in the backcountry of another country. And when he's looking at it, it's like the picture's beckoning him out to come out into the wild, so to speak. And that's really what it felt like when I was reading through the article. It was debunking the world's longest walkable road that Global Rescue did. And so it felt like it was calling out to me. And so I kind of put it off for a little while because I was focusing on business and trying to do online business, make a name for myself, so on and so forth. And also working with a buddy of mine on his project. But going through a bunch of personal development and trying to put my life in order, put my life together, figure out what am I even here for? What am I supposed to do with my life? I think of Lord of the Rings because that's my favorite movie of all time. Well, favorite movies of all time. And there's a scene where, excuse me, there's a scene where Gandalf comes back from a library to find out if Frodo has the One Ring that Bilbo had. And after some discussion, he realizes that this is the One Ring. And so Frodo's like, oh, well, it can't stay here because we're going to get, killed by people who want it. And he's like, no, it cannot stay in the Shire. So then Frodo's holding the ring. He's like, all right, what do I got to do? And that's really what I felt after starting the process of how can this be possible? It's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Nobody's done it before. Why am I getting this inspiration? So that was where the planning kind of started from.
And it's quite something to stick to it, because it's not a quick walk. It's a long walk, literally a long road and a long walk. It's over 2 years. It's like it's over 16 countries. It is a lot of planning, a lot of putting implementing plans, putting the right things in place, and really having to almost visualize you going through these different countries. And you are from America. America's very different to deep dark Africa. It can be quite something to actually visualize what it can be like, what experiences you're gonna have, but to keep going forward, to keep moving forward. And like you mentioned Lord of the Rings, with Frodo and his journeys, I'm sure you're going to be having many adventures, and hopefully not so many trolls will come and orcs will come and attack you, but you essentially going to have your own adventure like Frodo did, is delivering this ring. What are you most excited about on this journey?
Oh man, what am I most excited about? The people I'm going to meet along the way. I've had the opportunity and the privilege to travel a little bit in my life. And like in high school, I got to go to the UK and Ireland for a Celtic cultures trip with the People to People Student Ambassador Program. And then right before I joined the military, I got to go to Rome, and I had a layover in Turkey. And then when I was in the military, I was stationed in South Korea for 1 year. And apart from the fun things that I actually got to do in those different areas, the next best thing was the people that I got to meet along the way. For like the Celtic cultures trip, I was in a group of students, and I still remember a bunch of the people that I was traveling with because we had a ton of fun together. And when you're doing something outside of your comfort zone with people you've never met before, it's a really great bonding experience because you're all learning pretty much everything as you're going. And that's one of the things that the Marines is so effective at, is bringing people together for training in that sense, where you're getting outside of your comfort zone, you're doing something that you've never done before, and it's about coming together to do something that we all want to do together. And so meeting people along the way, hearing their stories, learning about their culture, their history, their experiences, their lives, that I really love stories. I love movies. I've started loving to read starting last year. And so stories are really what knit people together throughout history. So meeting the people along the way, especially throughout so many different cultures, it's going to be amazing to have so many more stories from their experiences that I can learn from for my life moving forward.
So we've done what you're most looking forward to. So what are you in one way dreading, or is concerning you about this trip? Because you obviously got to look at the good sides and potential hazards. So what are you sort of thinking, I really hope that doesn't happen, but I've got to prepare for it?
Chafing. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. Like, I can handle blisters. They're just uncomfortable for a couple days. Chafing, that lasts for a little while. So I'm going to have to figure out something else for that.
So being prepared with the right clothing, having
Yes.
creams and bits and pieces that you can have.
Probably bring some baby powder.
And what are you finding at the moment challenging in getting this trip planned is because, as you, I'm sure, have realized, there's a lot of work involved. And I know this is, I think you're planning to go, it's in a year's time, isn't it? Next June, next July?
Next June.
Next June. So you've essentially got a year to get everything in order. But what are you finding really challenging at the moment in getting this trip off the ground, so to speak?
One of the most challenging things for me is getting the messaging right. Because in my mind, I conceptualize it like this is just, for me, it's completely normal. Like, oh, I'm going to go do this thing because this is something that is an inspiration for me to do. And I was inspired by it. It's my calling. But having to articulate that is another challenge on its own, so that other people can understand, like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. This is the actual mission for the walk. So it's not just, he's going to go walk across half the world for, a vacation. There's an actual mission to it. And I understand it, and kind of transcribing that into language so that it can be easily understood and makes an impact. That's been the challenging part, not trying to manipulate, but just to pass along the message of this is why I'm doing it.
It's almost like getting the message out of your heart and your brain into your mouth and out there so that people really understand it. Because to think that this is going to be a vacation for you, yeah, this is some serious vacation.
I mean, it'll probably be like the greatest vacation of my life.
Okay, I can think of better vacations to take, like a beach and, a colored drink with the umbrella and bits of fruit in it. But okay, each to their own. So you said you're starting out in Cape Town in South Africa, which is a beautiful city. I used to live there. I love that city. It's one of the best cities in the world. How long is it going to take you to go through South Africa on its own? And I'm asking you just purely because I'm a South African, and it's interesting to know how long it takes to go from South Africa to the border of you. Will you be walking
Botswana.
in Zimbabwe or Botswana?
Yeah, so about 30 days.
30 days. So it's a really nice length of time to be in South Africa and absorb the South African culture. And just going from Cape Town up to Botswana, you're going to get different cultures just in those 30 days alone, because South Africa is very different depending on where you're at. So day one, you arrive in South Africa and you're now getting ready. Do you have any sort of plans or ideas of what you're going to do before you actually start your walk? So you've got into South Africa, you've got into Cape Town. Are you going to take a few days just to immerse yourself in this, or is it literally land and off you go? Trainers on and I'm off.
No, I'm gonna arrive probably a few weeks early just so I can get acclimated to the area, the climate, the people, and so on and so forth. And a few people have said that when I get there, they want to host me or hang out and kind of show me around. So get some bray and coffee, and kind of doing like a send off thing. So I'll be there a few weeks prior to starting the walk, and then I'll go.
Cape Town again. Is there anything that you want to see? You've got to go to Table Mountain.
Yes.
I'm putting my tourist guide hat on. You've got to go to Table Mountain. Now, are you going to walk up Table Mountain, or are you going to take the cable car?
I'm going to walk it. I mean, why go start this walk without walking Table Mountain? I'd be missing an opportunity.
It is beautiful, and beautiful beaches, good food, and it's great that you're going to give yourself those couple of weeks just to really be there, immerse yourself in, and start to, like you said, acclimate to the climate, because it's going to be winter when you start.
Mm-hmm.
June is winter time in South Africa, and it's going to be cooler than what you used to.
Maybe. I live in South Dakota, and it's pretty cool here. I'll be leaving here when it's just starting to get up from 50, 60, 70 degree weather. So it won't be too much of a transition. So anyways, I'm not too worried about the weather aspect, because I'll adjust.
So you're gonna have like a tent that you've got to carry, sleeping bag you've got to carry your own food. And is this all on a backpack, or are you taking some sort of trolley with you or something? Or is this very much you've got to survive with what you can carry.
My plan is to carry a backpack with all the gear and whatnot in it, but it just popped in my mind. It would be kind of funny to walk around with a little red wagon like a radio flyer. I had one of those growing up. That'd be hilarious. But so yeah, I'm gonna carry a backpack. I'll have some sleeping gear, tent, pad, tarp, stuff like that, and I'll be sleeping outside as much as possible because that is awesome. And also along the way, I've met several people who had said that they'd love to host me along the way. So kind of developing like a string of hosts throughout the road. So that would be kind of cool.
And you're getting this throughout all the countries at the moment. You're starting to find people along in different countries who wanting to host you and just help you along the way.
Yeah. So doing a lot of networking and meeting people throughout Africa, throughout like South Africa, all the way up to Uganda and whatnot, and also connecting with tourist organizations they're more connected and involved with the different areas, communities, governments, and so on and so forth. So being able to connect with them and develop those connections and relationships, when I get to a certain area, they already know me and they're expecting me to be there. And they're like, hey, let's hang out and do stuff together. So also working with the local NGOs to find out what their needs are and then help them out along the way as much as I can.
So is this very planned? It's going to take me 30 days to walk through South Africa. It's going to take me 30 days to do Botswana. It's going to take me 20 odd days.
Botswana.
So you're
roughly
very much planning the trip right down to the final days, or are you giving yourself space to take a week off? Not necessarily off, but like you said, helping out in a community. Do you have that flexibility that you can stay somewhere a bit longer because you just love where you're at and you want to help out? You can maybe do some volunteering or some charity work or something, or
so it'll be a through hike. So I'm planning it out as much as possible down to the day. And so walking through the different areas, finding out where I'll be staying at that night, walking about 20 miles a day, 6 days a week, resting 1 day a week, and going through these different areas. But also I'll have like a film crew with me. So 1 or 2 people to help me document the journey, record the experiences, and kind of make video documentary series along the way. But also opening up to other adventurers and travelers and walkers to come join me along the way for portions for like a week, 2 weeks, or a month. That way I'm not going through these areas alone and going insane from being alone. But other people can also experience these different cultures, get immersed in these cultural experiences, help out in local communities, and really learn more about other ways of life. And so having that multiple other people with me should make it a little bit easier to do things throughout the trip. And also if they want to stay, that they definitely can. So also connecting with these tourist organizations, voluntourism as well, to connect the travel, walking for a week or 2 weeks, to transitioning into staying in an area to help out with whatever they feel called to, however they feel called to serve. So I'm writing a book about the process leading up to the walk. It's called All Walks of Life. And that's kind of the whole premise of the walk, is there are more walks of life than just what one experiences. And this is a great way to get cultural immersion and to travel throughout areas that you probably would never go through in your life, and to learn more about different ways that people experience life. Because we are very much privileged in first world countries, and it would be great to experience what it's like to not have the luxuries that we have on a daily basis, to kind of see how blessed we are with what we've developed over the decades of modern civilization. So, and then also really just from my experience, the people who have less have much more fulfillment, and the people who have much more stuff feel much more empty. I've been there, both sides. I've had plenty of stuff and, decent, like good job, good paying job, plenty of things, and just felt like, what am I here for? What am I doing? This is kind of pointless. And then going to the point of having hardly anything and nearly being homeless, and like, I'm pretty okay. So there's that experience of, you don't need a bunch of stuff to have fulfillment in your life. and to be able to experience that in different areas, especially throughout Africa, because there's, from everybody that I've talked to who has gone to Africa, worked in Africa, been through Africa, they said it's such a magical place that it's unforgettable in the deepest sense. So that's what I want to share with other people while I go through.
And you're kind of already touching on a lot of the mindset things, because you can imagine that, one thing is the physical challenge. It's a lot of walking, a lot of pressure on the body, but also it is a mental challenge. And it was interesting to hear that, yes, you will have some people around and stuff there, because one of my questions, like 2+ years kind of alone, but yes, gonna meet people. Like, how are you preparing for it, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally? Because I think that you can only prepare to a certain extent, and then whatever will happen, will happen. But are there any things that you're already kind of putting in place and preparing yourself to make sure that when things get hard, and you mentioned that obviously Army and the Navy kind of prepare you a little bit, I would imagine, in certain ways, but this is way and above anything that I can imagine anyone has ever done in this area.
Yeah, so it is going to be a lot more mental than it's going to be physical. Pretty much that goes with anything in life. It's 90% mental and 10% what you do. And so I'm kind of a natural loner. So I'm used to being alone by myself and quiet, reserved person. And it's only over the past year that I've come to actually open up and connect with people, talk to people, and develop actual healthy, intimate relationships with other people and whatnot. And so part of that preparation is to have a couple people with me for the filming. So it's not just recording the journey, but it's also to have people to help maintain sanity, because being involved in a social construct is what helps somebody maintain certain levels of sanity. That's one of the reasons why prison inmates hate solitary confinement. It's because we're social creatures. We need to be in a social environment to interact with other people and to have that level of feedback, so to speak. So bringing music with me is definitely going to be one of the main things to keep me going when there's not a lot of people around, but also staying connected through my home base. So keeping in communication so they not only can track my whereabouts and stuff, but also checking in like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm still alive today. So on and so forth. But also I over the past year and a half, I've definitely been strengthening my walk in faith. So continuing that conversation with God to, just keep me sane, keep me going, and to, just keep going, really. So it's 90% mental, and it's a lot of getting out of my own head. And that's been a process that I think it would be very helpful for other people to learn as well, to get out of your head and just do things.
And I think there is now more of the desire and the need to do something like that, to connect with oneself, connect with the world, connect with the spirit, universe, God, call it what you want, the way you feel it. Because there seems to be a lot more desire to do certain types of pilgrimages. Like here in Europe, more and more people will go to the Santiago de Compostela, be it the long roads such as the Pacific Crest Trail, or in New Zealand, all these hikes, or people climbing all sorts of mountains, obviously Kilimanjaro, more people than ever go to Everest Base Camp, all sort of things. So there is, again, the spiritual aspect to it, as well as then the physical aspect. Are you planning something for the next year that would be like a mini pilgrimages, obviously I'm presuming there is a fitness, there is a physical preparation, but is part of it something, doing mini pilgrimages that would kind of take you on the spiritual journey already? Or is it more, again, just preparation physically and then just doing kind of the personal development through other methods?
So I guess a bit of both. And for doing like a practice walk, that was kind of one of the things that a friend of mine recommended, doing like a 1,400-mile walk. So it'd be like 10% of the way. But I would definitely love to do the Pacific Crest Trail. But I think I would love to do that after doing the Appalachian Trail, because I grew up in Maine. And when I got back when I was on boot leave, I hiked Mount Katahdin. It's the most northern peak of the Appalachian Trail with a buddy of mine. which I'd never done before. And it was just an amazing experience. Somehow we went up the hardest trail going up and went down the hardest trail going down, but they were different trails. So I'm not sure how that happened. But I would definitely love to do a practice trail, and then just continuing the training, the mental preparation. I'm not sure how much more mental preparation I can do, more of just mental acceptance, because in my mind, it's not something that I'm going to be enduring for 27 months. I'm already at the end and I'm just catching up to it. So that's how I feel about it. That's how I see it. That's how it resonates with me. So it's, one step at a time, one day at a time, and just, it's basically tomorrow.
I love that. And how has it been to share this message with the people out there? You kind of touched on, figuring out how to really put it in words, this kind of a drive, this motivation, this desire that you have, and putting such a mission, yourself on this mission. How has it been with people's reaction, be it, friends and family, close ones over the world that you so far come across?
It was terrifying at first because I thought I was crazy. I'm like, I'm gonna walk the world's longest walkable road. And in my mind, I'm like, why would anyone do that? But it's been overwhelmingly like positive responses across the board, apart from like one or two people. But from as many people that I've met over the past almost year now, nearly everybody's been like, wow, that's awesome. I'm like, oh, cool. It's great feedback. Wonderful. And they're like, why are you doing it? I'm like, I don't know. So that's been part of the process as well. So digging into the aspects of why am I doing it has been part of the process of digging into my life and how it's shaped and evolved over the years, and how I got into certain situations, and what I've needed to learn about the different phases of my life that I've been through, the different seasons, and how that has connected to where I'm at right now and where I'm going forward. So it's been a massive learning process of kind of like reflecting on the past and learning from who I've been, putting that all together into who I am right now, and then kind of anticipating who I will become, who I am in the future when that comes to result. So kind of bringing all that together into one, kind of the integration aspect, the alignment. So it's been helpful talking about it, kind of voicing out, to do like brainstorming sessions with people and just vocalizing what is in my heart and mind that I haven't been able to articulate. And it kind of just blurts out like, oh, okay, that's something new. I should write that down and look into that a little bit later, and kind of dissect things here and there. So it's been a lot of unpacking of things and a lot of analytical thinking, but also just trying to register what I'm seeing in my mind and what I'm feeling in my heart and in my gut. So figuring out how to articulate those things has been very, what's the right word? I don't know. It's been very helpful.
And I can imagine on this process, there's so much that you need to learn and discover. And as you said, in the process of reflecting, there will be lots of unlearning, that you will realize that there are certain habits, there are certain beliefs, there are certain things that, you have learned that came through culture, education, career experience, that actually are not the things that you believe they are, that maybe it will be helpful to unlearn. Have there been already some kind of aha moments of things that like, maybe this is something that not necessarily is a lesson I need to learn, but it's a thing I think I need to unlearn?
Yeah, there's been a lot of that. And what I've come to realize is it's a lot of mental reframing. So it's not about thinking about, oh, this happened to me and it sucked and it was terrible and so on and so forth. But I went through this experience, and here's what I can extract from it to kind of recognize anything similar in the future. And one of the things, excuse me, one of the things that has been probably one of the most challenging things for me is actually speaking up and vocalizing something that comes to mind, or that is stirring within me. That's been a very difficult thing the majority of my life. I was a very quiet, reserved, and kept to myself person, and I did not want to. Not only did I not want to speak up, I was afraid to speak up most of the time because I was afraid of, punishment or getting hurt or, beat up or whatever. Like I was bullied a lot in school and I had a kind of a broken home growing up. And then, kind of other relationships, I was just kind of a spineless person, just kind of going with the flow, regardless if I wanted to do something or not. So the part of speaking up and standing for something that I believe in, or not just believe in, but I know to be true, and standing my ground, having like that foundation of like, I'm not moving on this. That has been one of the most challenging, difficult things to learn how to do. Because conceptually, I understand it because I've seen many movies. I've seen many people. Like, I understand how to do that. I've watched you. How do I do that for myself? It's not, I'm trying to be an arrogant, stick in the mud kind of person. These are some things that are outside of my boundary of acceptability. And I'm not going to go along with what this entails, what this means, what this will impact, and so on and so forth. So the personal accountability and maintaining my own boundaries has been probably one of the most challenging things on that front.
And it sounds like you're doing a lot of work to get you ready for this trip. It's amazing just to listen to you and these experiences that you're having. And it seems that this road is helping you in some ways to find your voice or to speak up and use your voice, because you've always had a voice. You've just not used it.
My cage is up forever.
It's you're finding your voice or speaking your truth and sharing something that's passionate to you, something that is you are wanting to do, a goal and a plan of walking the longest walkable road, and having to vocalize it in a way with judgment. And like you said, you've had mostly positive judgment, but you've also had some of the negative judgment, and it's just sticking to it instead of going, yeah, you're right, it is nuts, I'm done. But sticking to it and finding that way to vocalize what is in your heart, what is in your brain, why you're doing this. And in finding that message, it's like you finding your voice or connecting with your voice.
Yeah, it's almost like if you're looking at a new job position that you're completely qualified for, but you don't really see the connections in your qualifications and experience. So you have an assignment and you're learning how to fulfill that assignment without really fully understanding that this assignment was made for you and you're the perfect person for this assignment. So that's really how it's felt.
You said that you've got a film crew with you. Are they going to be the same the whole way through, or are they sort of coming for a couple of months and then new ones coming in? Because it's quite a commitment to doing this. I mean, they also have to walk the longest walkable road.
They won't have to walk. They can bring a vehicle or some other form of transportation with them if they want. And yes, that is something that we're working on figuring out, is if they're going to be with me the whole time or if it's going to be kind of cycling through different people. I prefer it would just be a couple of people, like 2 people with me the entire time. That'd be ideal. But we also have to consider the travel regulations and requirements and policies and so on and so forth, getting the visas, going through different areas, visas going through different countries, the clearances. And if they're bringing like a vehicle or whatever, and the equipment, there's going to be certain requirements, certain steps and procedures that they'd have to go through for that. And with Russia, I need to get a invitation into Russia for like a sponsorship invitation into Russia, and that's for 30 days. So I need to figure out how I can get that extended to 16 months, which I need to contact the Russian government for that anyway. But I'm really honestly excited going through Russia, so I'm not worried about that at all. So if they cannot come with me the entire way, I'll just film it on my phone.
And you might find locals who
exactly
can come with you.
That would be really cool, having an amalgam of random people putting together this the series, that'd be so cool.
That would be cool. And I mean, it's quite a commitment as well to film it. And I mean, like you said, it's 27 months. It's not just a month away from family or commitments. So this is something that you're working on, is the film crew, essentially, who's going to be with you. And
One of the many pieces to work on, yeah.
it's like a 5,000 piece puzzle, isn't it? You're just trying to put the
Roughly.
sides together, and then you'll fill it up as you go along.
Yep, get the corner and the border, and fill in the rest, and then go to the next level. I
Because
actually
then
have
obviously-
a multi-level puzzle. It's of Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, and it's the map, but it's also the terrain kind of. There's like a foam layer for like the terrain, and then there's actual like plastic pieces for the mountains and different signs and so on and so forth. It's like a 4D puzzle. It's like 2,164 pieces. So it's like that, but only much more.
Yeah, because then obviously you're going through countries where not everyone will be speaking English.
Right.
So things like that, like, yes, English is very international language, but then you're not going through the mainstream cities. I can imagine you're going through Russia, where it will be either very remote areas, lots of smaller settlements with people definitely living very different kind of a lifestyle, and the language barrier could be there. So are you learning any kind of basics, or will you have something with, obviously we have phones and they have translations and stuff like that, but it depends kind of on the signal often, if we can get any kind of a reception to use the technology. So in this way, are you preparing with any kind of basic languages? Is there something on this level that you're exploring and preparing?
Yeah, so I've just started learning the Russian alphabet, learning some Cyrillic, and which is kind of cool. So I learned when I was in Korea, I was stationed there for 1 year, and I learned the written language. I learned Hangul, their alphabet, in about 4 hours. So I'm looking forward to learning Cyrillic more. But the thing is, I could read the language and understand the words, but I didn't know what they meant. So also learning the language along with the alphabet is going to be the next step. And I have about 1.5 years to learn as much Russian as I can, because that's going to be the main language to learn along the way. But I know there's going to be a few different languages I'll experience throughout African countries, and then through the kind of Western, Middle East, Eastern European areas like Israel, Syria, Jordan, Turkey, Georgia. There's a few languages I'm probably just not going to be able to learn. So I'll have like Google Translate with me, or I'll try to have like a local translator, see if anybody wants to adventure with me to translate along the way. Because that'd be kind of cool, having local translators in through each area. That'd be kind of cool. So really, it's going to be a lot of Google Translate, guesswork, translators, and learning Russian as much as possible.
And I'm sure there'll be a lot of sign language going on as well. What about Swahili? I mean, Swahili is quite a popular one in quite a few African countries.
Definitely would like to learn some Swahili. I liked in high school we sang a song. I don't remember what the song was, but I think it was like Swahili, and it was an African song. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to butcher it, but I think it was like partially Swahili. So that would be really fun to learn. And I'm also really fascinated with language, not just I'm fascinated with the history of words, like etymology, but I'm also very interested in different languages and how they evolved over time. They originated from like 10 ancient languages, and now we have hundreds. So it's fascinating to learn about different languages. And I mean, someday I'd like to be kind of like a polyglot. So yeah, goals.
Like you said, goals. And yeah, I mean, Portuguese is another big language in quite a few African countries, but a lot do speak English because they've got a lot of dialects and different tribes, and therefore English is like the common language that they speak with, because they don't understand each other's tribal language. So it's quite good. But like you said, it's having people with you who can help translate, and connecting with the tourist and the NGOs. I mean, they will help you to get by and through. So, and being fascinated with language, you're gonna hit some amazing places with different dialects, different languages that is only in a small area,
Mhm.
and just the different ways of speaking. That's going to be really amazing to experience, to actually hear it on your
Right.
ears.
Yeah.
It's quite something to be immersed in language when everybody's speaking it, and just how does it sound on your ears. So
Yeah.
that's
I mean, when I was in Italy, I was hanging out with my friend, and he'd be talking with his buddies, and it'd be in Italian. I'm like, what are you saying? Like, can you please interpret? Can you tell me what's you're saying, and so on and so forth. But it's kind of also really interesting to kind of pick up on a few words throughout the sentences and whatnot, like throughout the conversation, pick up on a few words. Like same thing with Spanish. I can hear it and I can pick up on a few words here and there, and some words I can kind of decipher like their meaning because it sounds really similar to other words and so on and so forth. So sometimes it's like deciphering a cryptic puzzle when in conversation, like, okay, they said this word and then they said this word and then they said that word and that word, so what are they actually saying in this conversation? And then it obviously it's definitely not perfect and do not always get the right translation, but it's kind of a game to decipher what is being said. And it's also not just what is being said, but how it's being delivered, the body posture, the tonality, and so on and so forth. So you can kind of gauge a conversation by the inflection of the tone, the speed of the conversation, the body posture, so on and so forth. So there's much more communication to interpret than just what has been being spoken back and forth. So it's really fun to do.
And I guess if you learn hello, goodbye, thank you, please, and if you get the
The
basics,
basics.
then you'll be all right. And just willing to learn and
Oh yeah,
show a willing, then quite
very much
often.
an open learner.
Mm. So you planning this, you getting your puzzle pieces put together. I love the way that you described that. You've got your corners, you're putting your borders together, and then you're just slowly going to be filling in this puzzle piece that should be finished by and all sorted by June next year, which seems like a long time, but it's not that long when you start looking at it. It can just zip by in like minutes.
I keep that frame of thinking that it's basically tomorrow to reduce the possibility of slipping into complacency. Because if I think that I have plenty of time, I'm going to put off the planning for plenty of time because like time blindness kind of thing. So I keep that mentality of it's basically tomorrow. So be as prepared as possible every single day.
Are you having everything planned? Like you said, you're already planning Russia, but you're not going to enter Russia until what, about 2 years' time? So you still have to plan Russia now, and you not wait until you get closer to Russia and closer to the time?
I'm planning all of it right now. So kind of taking increments in each country step by step to do like planning one thing for this country, one thing for this country, one thing, like one thing, same thing, one thing, same thing, one thing, same thing, kind of across the board to kind of keep it as consistent as possible. And then of course, other countries I'll be walking through, it'll take less time. So like, I think Uganda is going to be like 15 days. And then Egypt is going to be like 49 days. So there's going to be more planning that goes into other countries, but really just trying to keep that steady flow of planning across the board, and then do a little bit more research into one area to learn more about it as I'm coming to that area, do a little bit more research into the next area as I'm coming into it, do a little bit more research in the next area, kind of just to be one step ahead of myself at all times.
Because yeah, lots of puzzle pieces will be the same across the country. You will have the visa, you will have some of the safety, you will have some of the food, you will have some of the sleeping, you will have some of the road. I can imagine that once you know the type of kind of puzzle pieces you have, then you want to line them up. All otherwise, it will be a massive madness of chaos of trying to make sure that you have all the pieces that you need for every single country. And I can imagine that when you get to the final point of one piece, somewhere in the middle, you're like, well, I've forgotten this, so I need to go back and start all over again with all of them, with my new reframed knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like putting together a puzzle. You get all the edge pieces in the one area, you put them all together, then you get all the like blue pieces and then you get all those in one area, and then you got all the gray pieces in one area, then all the green and then all the tan, and then you kind of put them in different areas so that they're all there. You know how to put them together, and then you start matching up the actual shapes and designs and the color fluctuations, so on and so forth. So yeah, very analogous to doing an actual puzzle. And I love puzzles.
Well, it's good that you love puzzles, because otherwise I think that for someone this could be incredibly overwhelming. Well, I'm sure it is also overwhelming, but it's in a good way challenge, I would imagine.
It's incredibly whelming.
I can't even imagine. I don't want to pretend I can imagine that.
Basically, it's also analogous to the concept of how do you eat an elephant? You take it one bite at a time. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And if you do bite off more than you can chew, just keep chewing until you can finish chewing and then go on to the next piece.
Talking about chewing, I love food. I love talking about food with Natalie. So I'm sure that you will have a chance to explore lots of different cuisines and dishes, and which
As
for
much
me,
as possible.
that's part of the beauty of traveling and explorations. Are there things that you know you might be able to try and you're still like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to eat it? Is there something you're like, never ever am I going to try that? Or will I be brave enough in the moment? Or are you like a person, I will try anything, I don't have a problem with that?
As long as it's not cannibalism, I'll try anything.
Because yeah, you were saying like, how do you eat an elephant? And my brain went to like, would I eat an elephant? Like, you know, obviously we can go from
I don't
a
know
little
if
bit.
I would or not, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good analogy. Plus, also, if you're going to travel in an area or through an area or be in a different culture, if you're not trying their food, you're not traveling right. If you want to experience the culture, you have to try the food, because that's part of what builds a culture. And that's part of what builds a social construct, is that concept of gathering around the table to break bread together. It's the food. Part of what unites people is what you're putting in your body. So what you're eating together, it's also kind of like a bonding aspect, because if we're eating the same thing and you're eating it and I'm eating it and you're not dying, I know I'm not going to die. So it's kind of like a trust factor. Like, all right, we're eating this and we're not dying, so we're good to go.
Well, yeah, I think this is the difference between tourism and traveling, or the modern travel versus kind of what would someone call vagabonding almost. It's the really real, true, in the moment, no, 5-star hotels and all you can eat and westernized tourism. I think it is part of the experience. It's to live the way they live, eat the way they eat, connect with them and experience their traditions. And I think that we often, from the outside, we might be worried about, what will people think about me and how they will perceive me and how I will fit in. And I think these kind of experiences really show us our humanness, that in the core we're all the same. We're all just humans and we love to connect with each other.
Mm-hmm. There's a couple of stories that come to mind on that subject. Is one of the things that a friend of mine, a mentor, likes to say is, if you wake up in the morning and you go into the bathroom and you stub your toe on the corner of your bed, is it going to hurt? Obviously, it's going to hurt. You stub your toe. It always hurts when you stub your toe. Does that stubbing the toe, inflicting the pain, make it different from somebody else stubbing their toe and inflicting pain? Is there any way different? You're both stubbed your toe and it hurt both of you. So really, there's no difference. And there's also another aspect on, we had mentioned the people are going to see me. What are they going to think of me? There was a really funny little quote, story, whatever it is. From 0 to 30, people are concerned with, what are people thinking about me? From 30 to 60, people are like, I don't really care what people are thinking about me. From 60 to 90, people are like, nobody was really thinking about me in the first place. So basically, just have that mentality. Nobody really cares. Just do.
I think it's a wonderful mindset to have coming into this, not to worry about
Very
that.
much easier said than done, also.
But again, I think that you are up for the challenge. So you are already aware. And I always say that awareness is the first step. We cannot change or evolve and grow an experience without first being aware. And yes, sometimes the practice, the execution, the implementation, the reality, it's much more complicated and more multicolored than we would imagine through just our awareness. But at least you are prepared. At least, in theory, you know what to expect.
There's only so much you can actually learn, understand, and conceptualize without actually doing it. So yes, I love learning and reading and studying and learning new things, but it can't stop there. You have to do the learning and you have to do the action.
I'm so excited to, watch your journey from now until the time you start, and from the moment you start until you're done, and what happens afterwards. And I'm sure that our listeners will be as well. So is there something that people can do, people can help, people can support you with, people can reach out to you with, that you already have in mind, like might be nice? Obviously, spread the message if you're somewhere along the way, get in touch, but this is something that would be helpful to you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the concept of all walks of life, and I'm writing the book All Walks of Life, and the journey of 1,000 miles started with steps in the wrong direction. And it's the story of a much more in-depth explanation as to why would I do this. So basically it's the story of my life, the different seasons I've gone through, different walks of life that I've gone through, and then the culmination of why I'm doing this walk and what it's meant for, and so on and so forth. So I'm writing it currently. It'll be published and released early next year before the walk. And if anybody was interested in reading more about that, it is definitely available for pre-order on my website. So theconnectionodyssey.com. Make sure you have a /.
And we will put the link in the comments. It's really wonderful to have you here sharing your story and vocalizing and using your voice to explain to us and our listeners in why you're wanting to do this. Is there something that you would like to share that we haven't asked? Is there a tip, advice, or just a thought that you want to share with our listeners? Or maybe we've not asked a question that you really want to explain. So now's your time to just share something that you want.
You never really know what you're made of until you go after something you've never done before. And that's obviously kind of cliche. But if you think about it, there's certain things that when you do that you haven't done before, what happens is it actually writes new neural networks into your brain, and that one expands your brain kind of, but it adds more to your being. So it's not only you doing something new and you're learning something new, you're adding more to the being of you. And what that means is you're becoming more of who you could be. And that's really the whole purpose of the walk in a nutshell, is to unlock what's within and be who you were created to be.
I love that. That's such a great way to end. We've really enjoyed having you with us, and we would love to have you back over the next, 3 years, because we'd love to have you come back before you start your walk to sort of share what this year's experience has been, prepping, getting ready, and you are then closer to it. And then if possible, to have you back during your walks to really take our listeners on your journey on what you're doing. So are you happy for us to have you as one of our regulars to
Absolutely. I'd be very happy to.
I'm going to call it lunatic or weird or crazy, but wonderful adventure that you on. It's not for everybody, as you said.
I'm eccentric.
It's I think you have to be, but it's an amazing adventure you on, and I would love to come with you on this from my my office chair.
Yep.
Not physically.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to be here. So I really am grateful to be a guest here, and thank you for having me on your show to share a little bit more about my story. And honestly, I've learned a few more things about myself too. So it's I appreciate it, and it's been fun.
And listeners, if there's any questions that you have for Travis, please feel free to reach out. Do you know somebody who is doing another crazy thing that they're wanting to do, or having an experience, or going on a long walk somewhere else, or doing something else? We would love to hear your thoughts on Travis's experience, but also on other experiences that you've had. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon.
If you enjoyed listening to our conversation, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe. We would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and write a short review.